Hello and welcome to Focus Friday. I'm Dan Mickle, and the Focus Friday vlog is a vlog based on helping start conversations in the coaching and educational spaces. This week I want to talk about data. Now I know that there's a saying about paralysis through analysis and how we data point too much stuff and we just have too much information. But I think we actually need to visit that concept and look at how much of that's true and how much of that is just an excuse for certain situations. Because if you haven't read the book Don't Trust Your Gut by Seth Stephens-Davowitz, I highly suggest it because it's true. We can't trust our gut. There are absolutely times that our intuition, our gut is correct, and we feel like, oh my gosh, this happens all the time. But the truth of the matter is, scientifically and historically, our gut is wrong more than it's right. We just happen to remember the times it's right a little bit more. Why are we talking about this and how does it relate to what we're talking about in the coaching educational space is I think we miss a really great opportunity for data. And what I mean by that is we all know we stat everything in the games, right? In competitions, we stat every movement, every vertical, every jump, the speed of everything. We get 1 million data points in competition. And in the classroom, we can get 1 million data points by quizzes and tests and knowledge checks. But we spend most of our time in the training space, whether it's at practice in the gym, in the field, of the pool, or in the classroom, before the tests and learning stuff. We spend most of our time in that environment, but we almost never get data from it. Most of the coaches that I talk to, most coaches I work with, don't stat practices. And there's a lot of reasons, and they're all legitimate reasons. You know, we don't have a lot of staff, we don't have the tools. I get all that. But if you're a typical program, you're getting 10 hours a week, 12 hours a week, maybe at the bare minimum, if it's a club sport, you're only going a couple days, 4 hours a week of experiment and of lab and where you can get results and you can pull data points. And we're just kind of wasting that moment. We're wasting those times. So you need to figure out how can you get the data? How can you stat what's important to you? What are you working on? Because think about this. If the argument is, well, that's what we have competition for and that tells us where it's at, what about the players that aren't in that competition? Don't they deserve to know they're getting better? Don't they deserve to know that they're growing or they need to modify something? And we can't do that if we're only statting and paying attention to the competitions that they're not a part of. But yet they come in and bust their butts every single day and practice and work really hard and try and get better. But we don't see their growth because we don't have any data points. So we need to start looking at what are the best and easiest ways that we can get some even generic or easy data points. I get the limited staff, the limited resources. Maybe we need to teach our players how to collect their own data. You know, mentally keeping track of their stats or what they're working on and then journaling and putting it down for later use. We spend so much time planning down to the minute our practices and what we're going to do and what we need to grow in, but then we don't know if we're actually being effective. We leave the gym and say, man, they worked hard. That was probably a pretty good practice. But I got news for you. Most of us can work really hard at nothing. We can make it seem like we are busting our butts, but we're not growing because we're just doing what looks like busy work. So how do we track it? How can you as a basketball coach track shooting efficiency in practice? Well, you're going to have to carry a clipboard and some stuff. Or you're going to have an assistant and say, this is exactly what we're looking for. But the key is, you're in there 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours that you could be getting data and seeing things. And also, it's almost like a control group, right? If you're statting it in practice where you don't have the pressure of competition or the unknowns of outside competition, you are looking purely at the raw ability of your player to be able to perform and do something. So you can say, wow, they are actually getting better from a technical standpoint, but in the game, when they kind of lay that goose egg, maybe it's a mental thing and not a skill thing. So then you can focus on that. But you need those data points. Stop worrying about collecting too much data. You can fish through it and find what you need. But how do you tell a bench player, hey, you are getting better at this skill? I know you haven't played in any of the games, but every day I see it. Or vice versa, you have the player that says, man, look, coach, I'm busting my butt every day in practice, but they're not getting better at the skill. It's not because of lack of hard work. It's because of lack of focused work. But how do we know that if we're not measuring it? How do you know that your player is getting 10% better if you're not measuring it? You can't rely solely on competition for that, for a lot of reasons that we've already mentioned. Not everyone's getting the same time. Not everyone's seeing the same opponent. The environment changes all that. But a practice place is what you can control, and it's almost a clean place for you to get all these data points. And that's what we need to look at. So my challenge to you for this week is to look at your practices and look at where you can stat and what you can stat. How can you help show the growth of your student or your player? Or even you as a coach. How do you know what your training is effective? It may feel like it, well, they bought into it and they worked really hard, but again, maybe it's not producing the results. But we don't know that if we don't have data. We have to stop going, well, it feels like that. Feelings don't win championships. Feelings don't make a difference. Action does. Data points help those actions. And that's what we need to start doing. Stop phoning in the practices and just making them work. Make them work with a purpose and a way to track it and show it. You should be able to say, at the end of the week, my team grew in this area by 1%, 2%, or they declined by 3%. And then you can start to look at why. Are they injured? Are they fatigued? Is it the training method? Is it the system that they're in? But too often, again, we go off that gut feeling, well, it's not working because of the system. Maybe it's not the system. Maybe it's actually a technique being masked in the system. But you don't know that because we're not taking the data points. So I'm challenging you to figure out how to stat and keep more data on your practices. And I know we talked about it in previous episodes about filming and video, and this is a great point for that. You can go back and stat from your practice film. Not only is filming your practice great ethically and legally and kind of covers your butt if you need it, but it's a great way to go back and review. And if you can't stat in the moment, go back and stat off the film. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get the broad strokes or the broad picture of what's going on, because that's how you know. It's really easy to see when someone goes from 10% to 60%. But when you need someone to go from 50% to 55% to help your team win, it's really hard to see that with the bare eye. And your gut's going to lead you wrong. So find ways to stat, keep track of things that mean the most to you. I'm not saying everything has to be heart monitors and hooked up to all these machines. Simply a piece of paper with some tally marks on it. Maybe. But find a way to show, hey, look, yesterday you hit this many shots, today you're hitting this many shots. What's going on? Because you decreased by almost 50%. They could still be working really hard and feel like, yeah, I'm really working towards it, but their production's down, but they don't know it because they're overvaluing the feeling of hard work. We need to see the benefits of the hard work and be able to show them. All right, that's it for this week's Focus Friday. See you all next week. Don't forget, you can send your questions, your thoughts, your comments to @RealDanMickle across all social media. You can hit me up, dan@danmickle.com. Visit our sponsor, Soul Performance Academy, at soulperformanceacademy.com and @717soul across all social media. Please share, like, subscribe. Let's get the word out. Let's continue to grow this community. We've had some great discussions on some of these, and I love it. So let's keep it up. And I can't be here without you guys. So, thanks for all the love, support. And until next week, peace, much love. One day or day one, it's your choice, and don't suck.